Good afternoon. Welcome to the Thursday, September 5th meeting of the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission, and we will call for public announcements, please.
Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and the Wichita-Sedgwick County Board of Zoning Appeals would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. Copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure, and Planning Department staff reports on all agenda items are available in the lobby of this conference room. The Planning Commission's and the BZA's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning, subdivision, or variance application and his or her representative to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the chairman may extend these times by up to 2 minutes. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please write your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the lobby. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the Commission and the Board will be retained by the Secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking but you wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please sign in on that same sheet. The Planning Commission and the Board are interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available in the lobby. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct its own additional public hearings on these items. The decision of the BZA is final. Any appeal of a decision of the BZA is to district court.
Just a reminder, we have to push our buttons to use our mic, so don't forget that. So, moving on to agenda item number 1. Election of officers. And at this point in time, I will take nominations for the vice chair for MAPC.
I would like to nominate Mike Green.
Second.
Okay, I hear a motion to nominate Mike Green and a second from Mr. Blick. Is there any other nominations that would like to be heard at this point in time? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries, and congratulations, Mr. Green. You'll now relocate.
I think we have to elect a chair first.
I can't move unless I get enough votes.
And I would move for Chuck Warren to be chair.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion for Chuck Warren to become chair by Mr. Joe Johnson and a second by Mr. Green, Mr. Foster, Mr. Green, one of the misters out there. Mr. Green, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, now we're going to relocate chairs. I really do appreciate the opportunity to serve in this position during the past year. Thank you for having the confidence in me to do that. Thank you.
I'd just like to say you did a fine job, Cindy.
Yeah, Cindy did an excellent job. I think that comes from all of us on the commission. Thank you for a job well done. It was a good year. In the, under the heading of housekeeping, let's recess the MAPC meeting and go to the Board of Zoning Appeals for the purpose of approving the minutes of the last meeting. So we are now in, open the meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Is there a motion? Motion to approve and second. Motion by Mr. Green, second by Mr. Dool. Not sure who all was present at that one. We'll just, everybody say yes and they'll sort it out later. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Now reconvene the regular meeting of the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. We will see what items can be taken by consent. The first item, okay. Need a motion to approve the minutes of August the 22nd, 2019. My records show that absent was Mr. Joe Johnson and Don Klassmeyer. Everybody else was here.
So moved.
Motion to approve by Ms. Miles, second by Mr. Richardson. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Passes unanimously, or 901.
Abstain.
Now we'll move to the subdivision committee recommendations. Item 3.1, final plat of Osage Country Edition located 1/4 mile north of West MacArthur Road. Is there anybody on the commission wants to hear this item? Seeing none, is there anybody in the audience that would like to hear this item? Seeing none, we will take that by consent. Item 3.2, final plat Quail Springs Edition located on the southeast corner of East 69th Street North and North 143rd Street. Anybody on the commission want to hear this item? Seeing none, is there anybody in the audience that want to hear this item? Seeing none, we'll take that by consent. Item 3.3, subdivision committee, one-step final plat. That one's deferred? Okay, that is deferred. Item 3.4, one-step final plat, Kansas number 1 edition located on the east side of North 247th Street West, 1/3 mile north of West 53rd Street North. Anybody on the commission want to hear this item? Seeing none, anybody in the audience want to hear this item? Take that by consent. Item number 3.5, one-step final plat, Guadalupe Grounds Edition located 1/4 mile north of 37th Street North. Anybody on the commission want to hear this item? Seeing none, anybody on the audience want to hear this item? We will take that by consent.
I move that we,
I move that we approve items 3.1, 3.2, 3.4, and 3.5.
Motion by Ms. Miles, second by Mr. Foster. Any additional discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes unanimously, 10-0. Move on to public hearing vacation items. Is there anybody on the commission wish to hear item 4-1, city vacation of a portion of a utility easement near North 37th Street North? Anybody want to hear that? Seeing none, anybody in the audience want to hear that item, that vacation? We'll take that by consent. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve item 4.1.
Motion by Mr. Green, second by Mr. Dool. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes unanimously. Public hearing items. Item 5.1, a county conditional use for a dog kennel on property located on a zone rural residential. Anybody on the commission want to hear that? We will hear that. Item 5-2, the conditional use to allow a tavern and drinking establishment within 300 foot of a residential zoning on property zoned CBD Central Business District. Anybody on the commission want to hear that item? Anybody in the audience want to hear that? We will hear that item. Hearing number 5.3, conditional use to allow for a warehouse, self-service storage on property zoned DO Delano overlay. Anybody want to
We
hear
did
that
have
one?
a staff question on that.
You have a staff question? We will take that right now. Is there,
The applicant's gonna wanna hear this.
okay, we will hear item 5. Item 5.4, city CUP amendment to permit two 60-foot tall, 500 square foot signs in the Eastgate Shopping Center. Anybody on the commission want to hear this item? Seeing none, anybody in the audience want, we will hear this item. Item 5.1 is, let's see. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Philip Zevenbergen with planning staff for the record. This case is a conditional use application for a kennel boarding breeding training use. The applicant is actually looking to continue using her property for this use. The property is located at 24617 West Pheasant Court, which is on the east side of South 247th Street, about a quarter mile south of West 55th Street South. The property is zoned rural residential and is approximately 5 acres in size. It's just actually just over 5 acres in size. The property encompasses the complete south side of the cul-de-sac, that is West Pheasant Court, and it abuts to the west side on 247th Street. The applicant is licensed by the Kansas Department of Agriculture to operate a dog kennel. She has owned her own business since 2015, and she has been operating that business out of this location since May of 2018. She's seeking this conditional use because there was a call to a Sedgwick County zoning and nuisance inspector in July who did a site visit and confirmed with her that she needed to pursue this conditional use in order to continue operating this on her property. The Unified Zoning Code defines a kennel, this type of a kennel, as having 5 or more adult dogs, 3 of which are not owned by the resident, or a premises that has over 10 adult dogs. The zoning code also has 3 supplementary use regulations for kennels in the rural residential zoning district. That is that the minimum property size has to be 5 acres unless the entire operation is housed indoors. The second one is that any outdoor runs have to be 50 feet from any contiguous property lines or 200 feet from any dwelling unit that is not the residence, as well as that those dog runs have to be screened with a solid fence or any type of landscaping alternative that is described in the code. The applicant houses no more than 15 dogs at any given time. And she explained to me that generally that happens very rarely, and it potentially only happens when there's an overlapping care. New dogs are dropped off before other dogs are picked up, before their owners have come back to get them. The dog runs, as you can see on the site plan, the current dog run is in yellow. It is located kind of on the southeast portion of the property, with the house being on the northwest corner of it. The enclosure is split up into multiple segments to segregate the dogs by size and temperament in order to ensure good behavior. The applicant also does provide doggy daycare services, although that is a very small portion of her business. Currently, she only has 1 dog enrolled in that. And so based on that, there's not a lot of extra increased traffic in the area from pickups and drop-offs on a daily basis. Most of it is dogs being dropped off for an extended period of time to be kenneled and then coming back to get them when their owners are back in town. Because her property is over 5 acres, this is a permissible use by conditional use in the rural residential zoning district, as long as the other 2 regulations are met. On the site plan, you can see here the dog run distance from the property to the north is about 385 feet and is separated from the property with West Pheasant Court. The dog runs to the dwelling unit on the south is about 450 feet, but the dog run is only about 42 feet from the property line, so that would have to change. The dog runs, it's kind of light over here, it's only about 130 feet from the dwelling unit to the east. That would have to change, but it is about 100 feet from the property line. The applicant is already aware of that supplementary use regulation, and you can see This kind of more blue line is her proposed adjustments to her dog run in order to come into compliance with those distance regulations. And by doing so, she would be more than 200 feet from the property to the east. And then she would also be at least 50 feet from the contiguous property line to the south to come into compliance. She was also aware that when that dog run is reconstructed, that the fencing would have to be a solid fence. Right now, it's just a chain link fence. Properties to the east, north, and south are all rural residential, and they consist of single-family homes on properties of at least 5 acres in size. Property to the west is also rural residential, and it's undeveloped agricultural land. South 247th Street is a gravel arterial road that has about a 25-foot travel lane, has 80 feet of right-of-way. West Pheasant Court is also a gravel road with about a 15-foot travel lane and has 70 feet of right-of-way. Got some site pictures to go through. This is on the southeast corner of the site looking at her house, and you can see the dog runs being in the chain link fence. You can also see those multiple chain link fences on the inside, separating the different dog types for segregation purposes. This is looking to the southwest. You can see this is that dwelling unit. That distance is okay, but it has to be further away from the property line. This structure right here is an accessory structure on that neighbor's property and does not count towards that distance limit. This is on 247th Street. This is the applicant's residence. You can see how far back it is from the street. This is that property to the north that is far enough away that it does not count towards the distance requirements either for the dog runs. This is the property to the west. It is the undeveloped agricultural land, and this is looking north along the site from Pheasant Court along 247th Street, showing the gravel road and the rural nature of the area. Based on our review, staff is recommending approval of this subject to conditions. I'm not going to go over all of them. Most of them are pretty standard conditions that we have for dog kennels based on the maintenance and the upkeep of the property, as well as other conditions related to the health and safety and welfare of the dogs that she is caring for. I'd like to highlight item number 1, and that the dog kennel will only be allowed to have up to 15 dogs at any given time. And that though it is permitted that dogs are boarded outside on a property of 5 acres or more, based on the character of the neighborhood here, we're going to require that all dogs are kenneled indoors overnight. She's already doing that. We just wanted to state it as a condition in there. I wanted to mention, I failed to mention earlier, that the dogs are allowed to be outside anytime they want. There's not a predetermined time that they're there, and they're out there as long as they want, and she lets them in and out. Based on that, a lot of times, especially during the summer, they're not out very long because it's very hot. I would also like to highlight condition number 4. The applicant will have to update the screening within 60 days of approval, and that is based on a submission of an approved site plan after this meeting. I would also like to highlight condition number 8. The applicant has already communicated to me that she does already double bag any solid waste, and it is taken away from the site, but we felt it was necessary to make sure that was a condition to ensure that was going to continue into the future and to calm any fears of the residents that that may not be happening. And also condition number 12 is that this conditional use will be for 5 years, and that after that she can renew the conditional use, and that can be done by administrative adjustment. With that, I can stand for, one more thing. I have received 1 letter of support. I've received 1 letter of opposition, and I've also received a phone call from a neighbor who is not necessarily in favor of this either. But with that, I can stand for any staff questions.
Questions for Philip? Mr. Foster?
2 questions, Philip. One is on condition number 12, say an administrative adjustment is made. Will that include a time limit?
Yes, I believe we would continue probably a 5-year track.
Okay. And the second question is, I'm just curious, and I don't know if you can answer it, but when the supplemental regulations were figured out, is having a solid fencing optimum to reduce dog barking?
I would believe so. I mean, as we have heard from cases regarding dog kennels very recently here at the commission meeting, there has been a lot of presentation of how if dogs don't see things, they don't bark at them. And so definitely solid screening can help reduce the barking, as they will not necessarily see as many things to bark at. It also can help reduce and bounce noise away from other properties and maybe help reduce the sound of the barking. Yes, sir.
Fleck?
I have a question. When you talk about solid screening, I know that there's now scrim, they call it. It goes on a chain link fence, and so it makes it into more of a solid. Does that make a difference or not?
No, that would not be approved. Yeah, you can't put that on there. It'd have to be a kind of more of a solid wood fence and not something you just put through the slats of chain link.
Okay, I was just wondering, because I know construction companies are doing that, and I was just, for
No,
noise
that
and
does not
everything.
count.
Okay, thanks, appreciate it.
Additional questions? Thank you, Philip. Agent or applicant, you will have 10 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
And you're able to go through any of these slides that you saw if you want to use them. And you can use the mouse to point at anything.
Okay. My name is Carrie Brown, and I live at 24617 West Pheasant Court, and Crazy for Dogs.
Pull the mic down where, yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Is that better? Okay. Crazy for Dogs LLC is my business, and I basically dog sit for people who don't want their dog cooped up in a kennel all day long or by themselves all day long and all night long. I am with the dogs or my husband or my college-age daughter 24/7. When they go outside, I go outside. And again, they can go outside as often as they want. I really don't have a lot of barking unless they're playing, because they're not outside by themselves. That's when they tend to bark for attention and whatnot. The only times that I've had 15 dogs has been over holidays, where there's a lot of people going camping or vacations and that sort of thing. And it tends to be an overlap, again, with people dropping off or picking up. I do this in my home, so the dogs are allowed to come inside and play with each other or nap on the sofa or, just hang out and be with me all the time. I've had really good response from customers, and I know there's a lot of dog owners in my area. Some of my neighbors are in fact customers of mine. I don't know how else to explain it, except that I'm just trying to provide a service in a loving and caring environment. Any questions?
Yeah. Any questions for the applicant? Mr. Richardson?
So do you understand all the conditions that the staff has, and you're okay with those?
Yes.
You understand those? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any additional questions? Thank you. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak to this issue, you will have 3 minutes. Just go to the microphone. Please give your name and address.
Yes, my name is James Baker. I live at 1424 North Lark here in Wichita, and I own the 10 acres right out in the middle of the property. When I bought that property, there were restrictive covenants on the property, and I guess my question is are those restrictive covenants still in effect? Or I think according to my copy, they were supposed to be in effect 30 years, which is probably expired unless somebody has renewed them. And that's,
We'll let staff answer that question.
thank you.
Just if you would stay at the microphone, sir, in case we have any questions.
Yes, on the question on the restrictive covenants, those are private covenants, agreements that run with the land. I haven't seen in this particular property if there are or are not restrictive covenants. That's separate and apart from the zoning determination that's in front of you today. So I hope that helps address that particular question.
Is there any questions for Mr. Baker? Okay, thank you. Are there any other speakers? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. Mr. Johnson?
I move to approve per staff comments.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Johnson, Bill Johnson, a second by Mrs. Miles. Any additional comment? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next item, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dave, you're out with staff. Conditional use case 2019-31 is a request to approve of the conditional use allowing a drinking establishment, tavern and drinking establishment at 1716 East Douglas, as highlighted here on the screen. It's a narrow property. Essentially, it's right north across the street from where Tanya's is located. On East Douglas, we are about a half a block to the east of Hydraulic. As you can see, the property is zoned Central Business District. Under the regulations, in order to allow this facility to open with that activity, it takes a conditional use because it's within 300 feet of residential zone property, which is to the south, south of the alley and south of Tanya's, as you can see by the aerial. This shows the location of the property on the aerial photo. We're in the middle of a area that is developed with a very typical central business type, district type buildings. The comprehensive plan shows it in an area for new employment. This is the site plan that the applicant has provided. They are, and you got a copy of this, they are proposing to build a new front entryway to the building by recessing that area back to the north from the current front property line. And then they are in the process of requesting from the city an area, additional area that would be available, made available outdoors to the south of that into the sidewalk area. That is a total of 10 feet where they're proposing what would be essentially an outdoor seating area. The information that they provided, and you got a copy of that in the staff report, was to create what they're calling a tiki bar, and kind of creating a unique area that they're anticipating to be made available. You kind of see the layout within this site plan of what they're talking about doing inside the building. It is this building, it's the left-hand side of that building that they're talking about. We're creating that space, and you can see the additional outdoor seating area will almost be pretty much underneath the awning that's already on the front of the building. That's looking across Douglas north at the building. Here I'm looking east along Douglas, looking west along Douglas, and then that is looking south, which is, this is Tanya's. So that's what the request is for. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Dave? Mr. Foster?
Dave, I just want to confirm for the outdoor area, does it meet requirements in terms of public access across, along the north side of Douglas there?
Well, it does now, and for them to be able to create space within the sidewalk, they'll have to get I think they call it a right-of-way permit or a use permit from Public Works of what they're able to do in there to maintain access across on the north side of Douglas. That's controlled by Public Works.
Any additional questions? Thank you, Dave. Would the agent or applicant like to come forward, and you'll have 10 minutes? The agent? Or the applicant? State your name and address for the record, please, and you have 10 minutes.
Hello, my name is Alex Thomas. My address is 220 South Green, Wichita, Kansas 67211. I am the owner-operator of Lava and Tonic, the proposed plan here. What we want to create is an exotic getaway, tiki themed, or more often referred to as Polynesian Hawaiian themed bar that serves exotic, well-crafted cocktails, a little bit more higher class environment, and basically we've been going through this process, researching and developing the business plan, et cetera, working on opening up this bar. And so far on the patio improvement, we have engaged structural engineers or architects. We have stamp plans and have applied for the cafe permit, and all of that is in play. So really what we're looking for is just the conditional use to be able to retain our liquor license. Since we're not going to be 50% food, we are classified as a drinking establishment, tavern. However, we do have food options. We just don't believe our food options will comprise enough of the revenue to list us as a restaurant, much like Piatto's, or we're not, producing the drinks much like Hoppy Gnome, which is just a couple blocks to the west of us, which is a brewery. But basically, that's our plan. We're going through the proper channels for the licensing on the additions to the front patio, et cetera. But right now, really what we're looking for is the conditional use to retain the liquor license and get open for business and potentially have this be phase 2. So, any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Thomas? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Yep.
Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this issue? If so, come forward, state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Ann Resnick. I live at 1712 East Douglas Avenue, which is the building next door to this building. I think mostly my questions are for the commission in terms of process, because I only got notice of this, 2 weeks ago. The bar is almost done, I believe, and doesn't seem like there's much opportunity really to address the issues that I think will arise from shoehorning this bar into this space. So that's really, I have questions also about the outdoor seating. I don't think there's room for that. They have scooters everywhere, you can hardly get past the street now. Anyway, that's my question. I don't understand why this issue comes up when everything is almost completed and there's no opportunity really to address. I mean, I know you're going to approve it, right? Because you don't live in my neighborhood, but that's what I want to know.
Let me ask staff to answer the question in terms of notifications.
State law requires we send notices out 20 days in advance of the Plan Commission hearing. We mail those. We don't have any control on how long it takes for them to be delivered, but they are mailed 20 days in advance, so we know that they meet the state minimums. As far as the building permits, the planning department does not control the issuance of building permits. That's done by a Metropolitan Area Building and Construction Department, and he would be free to apply for building permits and get permits that meet the building code. If this conditional use is not approved, then he wouldn't be able to do the use, but he could still be legal to make modifications to his facility and still be in compliance.
Well, I guess one question does occur that I probably should have asked the owner of the bar about the outdoor seating, which I understand is a different permit. It's not for the commission, it's from the city, right? But those.
Tell you what, go ahead and ask your question, and then
Okay.
we'll see if there's anybody else wants to speak, and then we can have the owner come back up and speak to that.
My feeling is that these outdoor spaces become de facto smoking areas. That's what's happened to both Piatto and Hopping Gnome. And my doorway and my windows are right next door, right? So anyway, I'm wondering if he's planning to allow smoking outside?
Okay, any other questions for the speaker? Thank you, ma'am. We'll open up for additional speakers, and then we'll hang on to that question, and we'll ask the owner. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this issue? State your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Leon Mader. I'm at 967 North Back Bay Boulevard. I'm the owner.
I'm sorry, sir, your time is taken with the applicant, so you can do the rebuttal when we're sure that we're through with any other speakers. So
Okay.
Let me have you step aside just for a second. Is there anybody else in the audience that'd like to speak on this issue? Okay, Mr. Mader, now that I have you sitting down, you can come back and stand up again. This would be the rebuttal.
It is all about procedure. Again, I live at 967 North Back Bay Boulevard. I am the owner of the or an owner of the building, and just here to support Mr. Thomas and what they're doing. There are 2 patios already on the street. Need to correct Alex. He said 2 blocks down. It's 2 doors down to the no. So we have 2 patios already on the block. This one will be constructed much like those. It'll give plenty of room. It'll meet all the requirements, and we're very much in support of it. We think it'll be a great addition to the block.
Are you in a position to speak to the issue of smoking in the outdoor area?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Any other questions for this speaker? Mr. Thomas, if you would come back and talk to us about smoking.
Our intention is to create a smoker's patio on the front side of the building that fits within the normal legal guidelines of the Wichita Police Department and the city guidelines, which would be 10 feet from the front entrance. So but mainly, I mean, we're wanting an outdoor area to enjoy, the views and experience of outdoors. So as long as the customers are in compliance for all rules, then yes, they would be allowed to smoke out there. And in terms of the permitting, there is, ABC has to approve it as a approved drinking space if we expand from the front of the building. But the pushback into the building would have to meet those regulations, proper distance. I'm thinking it's 10 feet. I might be incorrect, but yeah, we would uphold the normal regulations. But in order to get the clearance for the sidewalk and the pass through, that's why we have to push back on the building. As it sits right now, we couldn't do the outdoor area because there's not enough space. And we've already gone over that through the cafe permit, I believe is what it's called. So, I mean, that's all in balance. But in terms of what has been done with the bar, everything has been, just furniture and design elements, nothing requiring building permits. So, when we're saying that we've already, done construction, I mean, really the only piece of construction is pushing back that entrance that requires structural and architectural examination, so.
Any questions for Mr. Thomas? Yeah, Mr. Johnson, Joe Johnson.
It appears to me that it would be very hard to meet the 10-foot rule from the front door.
Then we would enforce no smoking. I mean, that's as best as we can. I mean, that's the thing. And there's a lot of front patios, and there are people smoking on the front patios. So I mean, the front patio isn't the essential part of us opening the bar. If the front patio isn't approved by the Metropolitan Planning Committee, then we won't have a front patio. We still want to have a bar. It's not essential to business. This, what we're looking for is a conditional use to have a drinking establishment within 300 feet of residential. It would be nice to have a front patio. But if that's not to be had or it's problematic, then we still want to open for business.
Additional questions for the speaker? Thank you, sir. Bring it back to the committee for questions or comments.
Motion to approve.
Ms. Gross?
I don't know who to direct this question to, but if you look at the depth of the patio, it pretty much puts the only legal smoking spot in the front corners. Who would regulate whether or not that patio is allowed to have smoking or not?
It would probably be the Wichita Police Department with the complaint.
Mr. Newell?
So in this case, it's property is currently CBD Central Business District zone, the residential is, I assume, above these. Is it in the second story? Is that where you've got residential and you've got some type of commercial activity on the ground level?
Well, that may be true, but the trigger is the fact it's within 300 feet of the residentially zoned property to the south. That's what triggers the conditional use.
Additional questions? If not, I'd look for some action.
Motion
Mr.
to
Blick?
approve for staff's.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Blick, a second by Mr. Green. Any additional discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. 9-1. It passes. Next item, please.
Good afternoon, Matt Williams, Associate Planner. This is conditional use 2019-32, conditional use to allow self-service storage on property zone DO Delano Overlay and GC General Commercial. Per the zoning code, self-service storage shall be allowed only as a conditional use in the Delano Overlay. The applicant has indicated via his site plan that the intention is for a two-phase project. Phase 1 would include remodeling the building located at 1642 West Douglas into climate-controlled self-storage, and Phase 2 would include the construction of 56 storage spaces, replacing unused parking on site. The compound would be enclosed with gated access and a covered roof for a covered loading area. Phase 2 would also include remodeling the building located at 122 Millwood into climate-controlled self-storage. Properties within the Delano overlay must also comply with Delano neighborhood design guidelines. These guidelines are meant to ensure that altercations shall be respectful of the character of Wichita's earliest commercial and residential district. The site plan and elevations provided indicate that several of these guidelines have not been met. These involve the removal of windows along Douglas and Millwood Avenues, as well as the fluorescent yellow design features and the yellow sign and the layout of these storage units. The adopted future land use map of the Delano neighborhood plan identifies the site as appropriate for commercial mixed use. And staff's recommendation is to approve the conditional use subject to conditions, including the site must adhere to the Delano neighborhood design guidelines, and the applicant shall submit revised site plans and elevations for review and approval by the Director of Planning prior to the issuance of building permits. Here's the aerial of the site right here. The site is located between Millwood Avenue and a railroad line. Here is the site plan, with this being the first interior self-storage building, climate controlled, and then adding self-storage units along the edge over here, and then updating the second building for internal self-storage. Here is one of the renderings. I provided renderings, updated renderings to all of the commissioners as well. And here is the building in question. These are the buildings just to the west along Douglas. These are the residential properties just to the northwest. And here's the building from the east. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Matt? Matt, the drawings that are here, the colors that are there, those don't comply with the design guidelines? What are we looking at in terms of compliance? What would it take to make it compliant?
The yellow design feature on the outside doesn't fit with the character of the neighborhood. And the fluorescent color, there's a rule in the design guidelines that say signs cannot be of a fluorescent color, so that would just be changing color.
Something as simple as changing the color would take care of that.
For those things, yes.
Okay, thank you. Green?
Yeah, Matthew, how many buildings in the Delano district have we approved that did not have the window requirement? Do we have any buildings down there at all that we've overruled the requirement of having windows that were existing on a current building?
Not since I've been working on this. I can't remember a building that windows existed that were covered up. That would take away kind of the pedestrian feel of what the district is going for. Scott might have more history with that.
Oh, and I might just, we were talking with the applicant about this. This particular overlay, it's a little unusual, or it's not like any of the others in our code. The Planning Commission itself actually does not have the ability to grant the waivers of the design guidelines. There's a Delano Design Advisory Committee that does that, and their decisions are appealable to the City Council. And so one of the things that I spoke with the applicant about just prior to the meeting is the condition A states that the site must adhere to the Delano Neighborhood Design Guidelines. I'm sure they'll get up and ask that be changed to state unless modified by the Delano Advisory Committee.
So we can approve this, and then it would be up to the Delano Advisory Committee to, I guess, deny the use and purpose of the building because
The Delano Advisory Committee would review only the design of the buildings. And if they did not grant the waivers that the applicant is seeking, then the applicant could appeal that to the City Council.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Matt? Thank you, Matt. Agent or applicant?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, my name is Greg Ferris. I'm representing the Riffle family who owns this property and has owned it for a number of years. Scott is correct. We don't really have any problem with the recommendations of staff except for the design. And just to kind of give you a little idea, so that was the old picture. This is what it looks like now. This is what we're proposing. You can see it's a dramatic improvement. What we're going to do to that corner with where there's a railroad head and those is really a very strong improvement. The neighbors, most of the neighbors at least that we've talked to are favorable. This used to be a drug and rehab facility, and that's going to be going away, and we're going to be improving it with this. So as you can see, this is going to be a very nice project. It's really going to look really good for what's there now. What we'd like you to do is to approve, subject to staff comments, with the exception of number A, is exactly as Scott said, except if the Design Review Committee or the City Council makes modifications. That way we don't have to come back to you. So the conditional use will be improved. If the committee doesn't make those changes, then the owner will have the option either to do something different with the property or to follow the design guidelines, and that gives him that flexibility. So it doesn't really impact the conditional use to this state. So rather than spend a lot of time going into it, I'd be happy to. I think you understand it. I don't think there's any issues other than some of the design issues. Then you guys really can't do anything about those, so there's no point in going into great detail on those. Be glad to answer any questions that you might have, and Scott Riffle is here if you have some specific questions for the owner.
Any questions for Mr. Ferris? Mr. Richardson?
Greg, so primarily the design is around whether we have windows and what some of the colors are, is that?
No, there's two issues, and you're correct about the colors. It really wasn't, the colors didn't come through he really was looking for a shocker yellow. And that's what he was really looking for here, wasn't the fluorescent. So he doesn't have a problem with toning that down because it just didn't come through in the design. The other issue is probably the bigger issue, is that the Delano guidelines don't allow metal buildings of any kind. As you can see here, we're going to have two-tone structures. These are the actual units themselves. They will be two-tone. They'll really have a nice look to them, but sometimes you think of metal buildings and you just have this opinion of just a big tall metal building. That's not what we're doing here. It will be a very tastefully done project, but that is an issue in the design guidelines that you can't do metal. So those are the two things that we'll be asking for, is to allow maybe not this color yellow, and we may change that so it's a little bit more shocker yellow going into the design review committee, and then to allow metal for the storage units themselves.
So the committee could allow the metal buildings and still control what the colors look like.
Correct.
And some of those kind of things, right?
And certainly if the color's the big issue with that committee, that's not a big deal to us. Obviously, he'd like to have that because of his Shockers affiliation, but it's not a big deal. The metal is a big deal because it's really hard to financially justify building these in brick and stone.
Well, some of us would maybe like it to be purple.
Yeah.
That's a crazy idea.
Any other thing else I can add?
Mr. Blick.
Mr. Ferris, if you can go to the previous slide that you just had.
This one?
No, the one that's the aerial.
This one?
Yeah, that one will work. Actually, that one looks better. The question I had is, the property to the north, is there an easement on that, the slide you had up there earlier? It looked like the ones that are on the north, the storage units on the north were all the way up adjoining to that property that's on to the north, the machine shop. Yeah, those.
These right here?
Yeah, the one that's over to the left right there.
Those will be placed on the property line. There is an easement that runs right here.
That's what I was gonna ask you.
And these are off that easement.
Okay, that's what the question I had. Thank you.
Any additional questions for Mr. Ferris? Mr. Dool?
Excuse me, the railroad tracks are active, correct?
Correct, they run right here. So,
okay, and just to the east of there is where we have talked about some apartments that are going to be built. I just wonder if an active railroad track between those apartments where people may be storing things could be a hazard.
I'm not sure I'm following the question, Dad.
Well, if people might be tempted to cross those active railroad tracks to get to a storage unit that they have. Am I missing something here?
well, I think in any railroad crossing anywhere in town, there's a certain amount of danger. This is a signaled crossing, so the main entrance is over here. This is an exit only, and it's a right turn only out, and that was by agreement with the railroad company, is that we would be allowed to have an exit here if it was right turn only. So there'll be signed right turn only here. So this is the entrance over here, so I don't see how there would be any more danger if this was 4 blocks down. They still have to cross those railroad tracks to get there, so I don't believe that there would be any issue other than railroad tracks are dangerous, and if you're not careful, it can be a problem.
Any additional questions? Thank you, Mr. Ferris.
Thank you.
Anybody from the audience like to speak on this issue? Seeing none, I bring it back to the committee.
I move we approve with the wording that Mr. Ferris had asked for.
Staff clear on what that is? We're good with that? Right there? Okay?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 10-0. ahead, Dave.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dave, you're out again with planning staff. Conditional use 29, or, not, community unit plan 2019-28. This is a request to amend the community unit plan for Eastgate Shopping Center, located at the southeast corner of Rock and Kellogg. This request is essentially to modify the language regarding signage, primarily tenant signage on property. The applicant has identified the fact that they are not really changing the sign that is on Rock Road. The big changes will be on the two signs that are located at these locations up along Kellogg Drive. They're requesting to allow the height to increase from 35 feet to 60 feet and to increase the overall square footage allowed to a maximum of 300 square feet. And here's a rendering showing what they're talking about doing. That what the reason for the increase is that they're wanting to create the panels for tenants that will eventually hopefully go into Eastgate Mall. The height increase is shown also on this rendering, on this picture that the applicant provided. The existing signs are 35 feet tall, as you can see there, and they're asking to raise the overall height to a maximum of 60 feet. And again, the locations, one would be at this location, what's called the western side, and the eastern sign. The western sign is kind of in front of where Toys R Us used to be, and this is Burlington facility and location out at that. We've provided recommendations within the staff report to approve and amend the CUP to allow that. These signs will be larger than what would be allowed by right under the sign code, but the amendment to the CUP is with the process in this instance to allow the larger signage. That's kind of consistent with what's been allowed on other sign locations along Kellogg, primarily after the improvements of Kellogg. And you can kind of see from this, obviously Kellogg is hardly at grade any longer. It's below grade, and that's the reason that they are asking for the additional signage to be able to at least have an opportunity to catch some knowledge coming on Kellogg. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions staff's got.
Any questions for Dave? Thank you, Dave. Oh, just a second. Mr. Richardson?
There's a similar sign, Dave, in front of Town East there. Do you know how tall it is? Is it?
No, off the top of my head, I do not. I don't know whether.
Off the top of my head, I'm thinking it was 60 feet.
So it'd be essentially similar to this one, yeah.
I talked to the applicant before they filed, and they specifically referenced that sign as what they were after. So I think they probably based it on that.
Thank you. Agent or applicant? Come forward, give name and address for the record, please, and you have 10 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Michael Lay, 1224 North Richmond. I am here on behalf of Clover Architects and Walter Morris & Son. We feel that the amended CUP will help attract more desirable tenants into the sign. With Toys R Us leaving, they recently purchased that building. They're trying to fill that space, and with Kellogg going to more of an overpass visibility, you have to get off a lot sooner and you can't see the signage for that shopping center. And so they feel if they were allowed to increase the height, you'd be able to see the signs when you got off Kellogg, either eastbound or westbound, and it would also help attract the newer tenants, and it'd be more, it would help the visibility of the shopping center.
Any questions for the applicant? Mr. Blick?
Question I have is the one that's on Rock Road, right now, the sign, the smaller sign, you're wanting to go, same height and just wider, is that what you're?
No, the one that's on Rock Road, right where that old Toys R Us used to be, is not going to get changed at all. It's going to stay existing how it is currently.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Anybody from the audience want to speak on this issue? Yes. State your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Teresa Mora, and I live at 8219 East Peachtree, which is located in Bonnie Bray. It's just northeast of the Kellogg Rock intersection. I'm here today to voice my concern about the proposed zoning amendment that Eastgate Shopping Center is requesting. This commercial concern wants to put up much larger signs than they currently have in place. When I asked the City Planning Department for specifics about the sign request, they were unable to tell me what type of sign it would be. The only information available was that there would be 2 signs, 60 foot tall, 500 square foot each. Because the amendment states that the signs are located at the corner of Kellogg and Rock, it led me to believe that the signs would be 2-sided. Since I've got here now, I see the actual location of the signs, which makes my reason for being here even more pertinent. I'm concerned that this will be a 2-sided LED digital sign. That's what brought me here today. My experience with these digital signs has not been good. I am currently dealing with one positioned on Kellogg's frontage road. This sign is 14 foot tall by 48 foot wide, comparatively smaller than the proposed signs. This existing sign dumps continuous light pollution into Bonnie Bray development. I periodically have to contact the Atomic Sign Company and ask that the brightness level be lowered during nighttime hours. Unfortunately, the company cannot be reached at night when it becomes apparent that the brightness is set too light or too high. And of course, it seems to often happen on a weekend. The light pollution from this sign is very far-reaching. If Eastgate's proposed sign is going to be an LED digital sign, then our level of light pollution will be intolerable. When I've had to speak with Atomic Sign Company in the past, they have been very arrogant about the fact that Wichita doesn't have any limitations/guidelines that they have to comply with. I read over the sign codes and found that there are no guidelines addressing these LED digital signs. There isn't a limit stated as to how bright these signs can blaze at night, and there's nothing to prevent the signs from being positioned inward towards causing their light to flood into residential areas. These are serious issues. If blocking a zoning amendment like the one being put before us today is the only way to take action against unregulated signs, then I voice a solid protest against this amendment request.
Before I ask for any questions for the speaker, I'll let staff talk about the rules and regulations that are currently in effect.
There are regulations dealing with the brightness. There's a maximum number of nits or whatever, however that's measured. And there's a zoning enforcement group that you can call and they will check on it. And if they find out that it's in violation, they will contact the company and work with them to get it lowered. But yes, there are maximums.
Any questions for the speaker? Thank you, ma'am. If you want some more information about what you can do about the signs that are apparently, at least you feel are in excess of the code, then staff can help you with that information.
I was also concerned that in the notification that I got prior to this hearing, or whatever you want to call this, board meeting, that there was very little information regarding the type of signs and the exact placement of them. It did not say that they would be placed on Kellogg specific. As a matter of fact, the diagram on the diagram in which I received it only shows one sign. It didn't show both signs. And again, it doesn't state if it's an illuminated sign or an LED sign. I don't know how far this process will have to go as far as the signs being erected before anything can be addressed, or if it becomes public record what type of sign is being proposed so that more objection can be brought forward. Because we're a mature residential area, and like I said, we're contending with a small LED sign currently, and if the proposed signs for Eastgate, if they're also digital, it's going to compound the type of light pollution that we're dealing with, because you're talking about taking it higher and larger. It'll be projecting right over Kellogg, straight into our development. I don't know who else that I could speak to about this. I thought today there would be more said as far as information other than this NIT measurement that I didn't see in the sign code when I looked online.
Okay, Mr. Blick?
The applicant would probably have a rebuttal, but if the applicant isn't doing LED, would you have a problem with the sign being the height?
No, because I looked at what they call pylon signs that are illuminated interiorly, from the interior, and a lot of places here in town, they use those, and I don't see that that would throw any, troubling light. It wouldn't be flashing, it wouldn't be changing constantly, and it would be stationary. It wouldn't be a constantly flickering, intensifying light like digital.
Great, thank
tends
you.
to be.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Okay, before I ask the speaker to come back for rebuttal, any comments from staff in terms of what was sent out? I mean, it sounds like there's a question as to what are our rules when we send something out? How much information do we put out?
The notice was a typical notice in terms of I don't know exactly what it was worded, but it did state that there were signage. The application itself does not indicate whether or not they're proposing to do what we call electronic message signs. They would be permitted if we did not restrict them through this CUP amendment.
Okay. Unless you got something else, I'll bring this. Okay, agent or applicant, if you would come forward, you'll have 2 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your concern. We are not proposing an electronic message center on these two new signs. We are going to do internally lit LED modules, so they'll be behind the faces, so they'll just light up at night. There won't be changing messages, it won't be flashing, it'll just be what you described as a pylon sign, 60-foot tall, 30-foot wide, or whatever we proposed. There will be no message center on it at all, so no flashing lights, nothing to like that billboard that you have. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Any questions? Mr. Foster?
If you look in here in the CUP document, that addresses exactly what you've said there. So that still stands, and I think you've addressed the concern. Thank you.
Mr. Green?
And just for the record, the staff report that we received said that there are 2 existing signs on Kellogg, the basis of which will be the foundation for the new 60-foot signage that you're putting up. So nothing has changed there.
No, nothing's changed. We're just going to remove the existing signs and put the new ones in the exact same place.
Thank you.
Any additional questions of Mr. Richardson?
Question for Dave. Are you saying the existing CUP document says no LED signs?
Actually, no, the existing says no flashing signs. But there is no language in the existing CUP regarding LED, because LED signs did not exist at the time that original CUP document was created. And, go ahead, Scott.
The language that's in the current CUP, we are interpreting just exactly what Dave says, that prohibits an electronic sign that it flashes or moves, but if it is a solid sign, I forget how frequently it can change, 5 seconds, do you recall?
Kurt ruled as long as it doesn't change more frequently than once a second.
But, so if there is an intention to require it to be internally illuminated signage, that would need to be added to the action of this body.
And I know that only because the question came up, under the current code, the brightness maximum for LED signs is what's known as 3,000 nits, and that's in the code right now.
Any additional questions? If there's a motion to be made, make it right now.
I'd make a motion that we approve this subject to the signs be internally lit only.
Any further discussion? Have a motion by Mr. Richardson, a second by Mrs. Miles. Anything else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Passes 10-0. If there's no other business,